So we read King Asvapati's prayer to the Divine Mother to incarnate some form of herself in order to and be born here on earth, mission to earth, some living form of thee, in order to give a big push to the evolutionary movement for humanity and for the earth. So I'll read the next section, short section. His prayer sank down in the resisting night, oppressed by the 1,000 forces that deny, as if too weak to climb to the supreme. But there arose a wide, consenting voice. The spirit of beauty was revealed in sound. Light floated round the marvelous vision's brow, and on her lips the immortal's joy took shape. O strong forerunner, I have heard thy cry. One shall descend and break the iron law, change nature's doom by the lone spirit's power. A limitless mind that can contain the world, a sweet and violent heart of ardent calms, moved by the passions of the gods, shall come. All mights and greatnesses shall join in her. Beauty shall walk celestial on the earth. Delight shall sleep in the cloud net of her hair, and in her body, as on his homing tree, immortal love shall beat his glorious wings. A music of griefless things shall weave her charm. The harps of the perfect shall attune her voice. The streams of heaven shall murmur in her laugh. Her lips shall be the honeycombs of God. Her limbs his golden jars of ecstasy. Her breasts the rapture flowers of paradise. She shall bear wisdom in her voiceless bosom. Strength shall be with her like a conqueror's sword, and from her eyes the Eternal's bliss shall gaze. A seed shall be sown in death's tremendous hour. A branch of heaven transplant to human soil. Nature shall overleap her mortal step. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. Which way are we reading, Rosa? Bärbel, will you begin?
This prayer sank down in the resisting night, oppressed by the thousand forces that deny, as if too big to climb to the supreme.
Thank you. So he's uttered this great prayer, but when he stops uttering it, then it seems as if there are so many opposing forces in the universe. There's all the resistance of the night, the unconsciousness, the ill will, the ignorance. So there's a moment when it seems as if that prayer cannot possibly have been heard. It's oppressed, it's pressed down by the thousand forces that deny, that say no, that obstruct even the purest aspiration. It seems as if any human aspiration is too weak to climb to the supreme. But that's only a momentary appearance, because every sincere prayer is heard. Yes. Prasanna, would you read?
But there arose a wide, consenting voice. The spirit of beauty was revealed in sound. Light floated round the marvelous vision's brow, and on her lips the immortal's joy took shape.
So he's not just hearing the mother's voice, he's really seeing her. No? He has the image, this marvelous vision, and now we hear the sound of her voice, a wide, consenting voice. She's agreeing, she's saying yes. The spirit of beauty was revealed in sound. There's something so beautiful about that voice of hers. And he sees light floating around her brow. The brow is this part here, the forehead. And on her lips, the immortal's joy took shape. She must have smiled. A beautiful smile expressing that joy, that heavenly joy beyond any possible human joy. So what does she say? Eve, would you read, please?
O storm forever, I have heard thy cry. One shall descend and break the iron way, change nature's doom by the lone spirit's power.
Thank you. So she calls him a forerunner, the herald, the one who goes in front, announcing something. She says, you have come ahead of everybody else, you're the forerunner, and you're a strong forerunner, and I have heard your cry, your appeal, your prayer. One shall descend. She's prophesying that it will happen, and that one will break this iron law, the law of fate, the law of death and ignorance, all the resistance of the night. One is going to come down and do that. One will change the doom of nature, doom, misfortune, what is fixed, what can't be changed. So, and the doom of nature is that everything that is born in the material world is subject to death and suffering and ignorance. But the spirit has power over nature. Nature is not more powerful than spirit. Spirit is more powerful than nature. We don't experience that here because we don't experience the full power of spirit in ourselves. But this one who will come will use the power of spirit to change the doom, the fate of nature.
Some poems say that it's the birth of Savitri, which is speaking here.
She is prophesying, she's agreeing that one will be born, and that one is born now very soon in the next canto, and that one is given the name Savitri, the significant name of Savitri. So this is a very significant point in the poem. I will just share this with you. If we think, the poem is called Savitri, but now we are on page 347. We just got that small, short glimpse of her at the very beginning in Canto 1 and Canto 2. No? And there we were told that she will be victorious in her mission. But everything from the first line of Canto 3 up to now, more than 300 pages, it has been about the mission of Asvapati. Asvapati, who's representing the aspiration of the world. He's embodying the aspiration of the world. The world didn't even know that it was aspiring. This outstanding being, this realized being, this great rishi, is embodying the world's desire for higher realization. And we saw the release, the way that he achieved the liberation of his own individual soul, and then a transformation that came as a result of his great aspiration for earthly change. And then his journey through all the planes, looking for that one thing, that power, that lone spirit's power. And when he reached finally the Supreme Divine Mother, she told him no. She said, what you have done, you have won for yourself, but don't ask it for the world, for the earth and men. They are not ready, it's not time. So he could have just accepted that, but he didn't. His heart is not satisfied. So we read how he argues with her. He said, I know that your creation can't fail, but it's taking such a long time, and we don't feel the support of your presence. Everything we struggle and we win victories, and then it all seems it has to be done again. It's such a struggle. Please, incarnate some power of yourself in a human form. That's what we read last time. So that power can come down and make a big difference, move things forward. And this is her reply. She's saying, yes, one shall come. I agree. I will send an emanation of myself to do just what you're asking me. So this is her consent. And the result is the birth of Savitri. And Savitri's mission then is to fulfill that aspiration of Asvapati. She has to do her yoga for that to happen, and then she has to have this debate with death, and even when she's conquered the power of death, there's still some cosmic law which does not allow her to return with Shraddhavan to earth. Death is dissolved. They are there in a kingdom of light, but nothing moves. And she has to argue with the very highest form of the Lord. He tells her all kinds of things. It's the longest canto in the whole book, Canto 11. And she has to insist. She has to answer all his arguments. She has to fully work out, we can say in practice, all the realizations that she had personally in her yoga in Book 7. And only then he says, now you come with me to the transcendent world where things can change. Beyond the manifestation, above this world of time and space. You come with me there, you see how things are there, and there you make your choice. And he gives her 4 chances. He offers her the peace of the eternal, the oneness, the bliss, and there's another thing he offers her, I forget. And to each thing she says, yes, give me those things, but give to me for earth and men. And then finally he says, yes, you've spoken with my voice, your will is my will. All this shall be written out in destiny's book, and it will be fulfilled by my trustee of endless time, he says. So it will not be realized immediately. And then that Supreme Godhead gives to Savitri first a detailed description of what this will mean for her personally, and then a long description of what this will mean eventually, after many ages, for the earth. No? So this story is supposed to have taken place long, long ago. He shows Asvapati as the first human being who had this secret knowledge, this Vedic knowledge. So Sri Aurobindo says in a letter, this story is supposed to have taken place right back in the dawn of human time, when it was necessary to open up this possibility, to hew the ways of immortality. And that is done through the interaction. It's the aspiration rising from below and the supreme grace from above that answers. And these are the 2 things that in their combination alone can achieve the great goal that is the aim of our endeavor. So here, yes, the birth of Savitri is being promised. It's a key moment in the poem, more or less in the middle.
You have said that those 300 pages that come before were Ashwapadi's yoga, and then you have said that Ashwapadi's yoga was Sri Aurobindo's yoga.
I have not said that personally, but several people have said that. But it's rather obvious that all the experiences that are described in the whole of this book, not only Aswapati's yoga, but also Savitri's yoga, were personal experiences of Sri Aurobindo himself. Mm-hmm. And I think his scribe, close disciple, Dr. Nirod Baran, who was our patron and founder of Savitri Bhavan, he is the first one to have said that Aswapati's yoga is Sri Aurobindo's autobiography. But I remember with this idea in my head, when Savitri Bhavan first started, I wrote a kind of summary, outline of the whole poem to guide us in our study. And I gave that for publication in the ashram magazine, Mother India. And there I said something about Aswapati is Sri Aurobindo himself. And the editor, my beloved teacher, Amal Kiran, he added, an aspect of Sri Aurobindo himself. There's also a misconception about this changing, rewriting. Sri Aurobindo himself has written that I do not regard, this is in the 30s, that I do not regard Savitri as a poem to be written and finished, but as a field to see how far writing English poetry can be done from one's own yogic consciousness. And in that letter, he said that each time he achieved a higher level of consciousness, he would go back to Savitri and go through it and see if he could bring the text that he had written, rewrite it, to bring it up to a new higher level. And we can trace this nowadays. Now, just recently, we've had published on the internet, I will get a printout made, the very first version of Savitri. And we've known for a long time that in the 1930s, he was writing book 2 in the mid-1930s, and revising and revising and revising and revising. And something that had started out in his original early versions, even the 1936 version of Savitri, I think the whole yoga of King Aswapati is about 200 or 300 lines. But he went on expanding it and expanding it and expanding it. So at that time he was obviously not thinking about finishing it. He wanted to make it more and more accurate and complete. And so far as we know, it was sometime during the war, maybe 44, 43, 44, sometime like that, that he seems to have decided to, that at least part 1, this part 1 was complete, and he would go on and write the rest of the poem, which only existed in an early form. So, but he went on revising right up to the end, and he brought most of it, as far as possible, up to a level that he considered somehow satisfactory. There are only 2 cantos which he didn't revise finally. One is book 8, which is just 1 canto, and the other is the last one, book 12. And we can see the difference. But that's a whole nother story. But when we read this answer of the mother, this is among the most sublime poetry he ever wrote. That is to say, the most sublime poetry that's ever been written by anybody anywhere. This answer, what we're just reading now, it has sublime quality. It's written from the very highest possible consciousness. And there's another passage which he himself has pointed out. The first description in Canto 2 of Savitri, that he said he felt probably had an over-mental touch. We can pick out some of these. But it's, unless you're a poet aspiring yourself to write from the overhead levels, it's not all that important. You try to receive the effect of these lines. That's the main thing. Yeah. Where were we? The Spirit's power. Yeah?
Yeah.
Change nature's doom by the lone Spirit's power. So these are the lines in which the mother promises that one shall be born, one shall descend, this one who will become Savitri. And then she starts to describe what that one will be like. James.
A limitless mind that can contain the world, a sweet and violent heart of ardent calms, moved by the passions of the gods shall come.
Yes. So, not an ordinary human mind, a limitless mind, one that can contain the world, be open to the whole world. A heart that is full of sweetness, but which is also violent. It's intense, it has power, and ardent calms. These are contradictory things, no? Ardent, intense, burning, and yet at the same time calm. She combines these in her heart, and this heart is moved by the passions of the gods, the things that the gods are enthusiastic about and excited about. So that mind and that heart shall come. Francesca, you can read.
All mights and greatness shall join in her. Beauty shall walk celestial on the earth. Delight shall zip in the cloud net of her hair, and in her body, as on his own tree, immortal love shall beat his glorious wings.
So this is the description of the being Savitri. All powers, all different kinds of greatnesses will be brought together in her. Most individual beings can represent partially or more fully one power, but all mights and greatnesses shall join in her. Beauty is one. Beauty shall walk on the earth, bringing heaven there, celestial, as a heavenly being, as beautiful as a heavenly being, she shall walk on the earth. And Sri Aurobindo describes this beauty. Delight shall sleep in the cloud net of her hair. This lovely, cloudy, dark hair is carrying in it delight. And her body will be like the homing tree, the dwelling place of immortal love, who will beat his glorious wings there when we shall feel the presence of that immortal love in her body. Mahalingam.
Griefless peace shall be by charm. The heart of the perfect shall attune her voice. The streams of heaven shall murmur in her lap. Her lips shall be the honeycomb of God. Her lips is golden jar for ecstasy. Her breast the rapture of paradise.
One part of the charm of Savitri is this grieflessness. She's not touched by sorrow at all. Later on, her father mentions this, that this is part of her power, that simply sorrow can't live in her presence. And that's like a harmony, a music of griefless things shall weave her charm. Harmony is bringing together of different strands, different colors. No? There'll be something special about the quality of her voice. It will be tuned, attuned, as if to that heavenly music. In the Christian iconography, we think of the saints sitting in heaven and playing their harps, beautiful harps, and singing the praises of God. So here it's almost like that, those heavenly perfect beings playing their heavenly music. Something of that music will be there, expressed in her voice. And there'll be something very, very beautiful and appealing about her laughter. The streams of heaven, the sound of those lovely little rivulets running through heaven, the sound of those little forest streams. It'll be there, that musicality and freshness in her laugh. And her lips, so sweet, they'll contain all the sweetness of the divine. This color golden, it's a characteristic of Savitri, which is mentioned, this lovely color of her body, of her skin. So he says her limbs, the limbs of her body will be like golden vases, jars, filled with the ecstasy, Ananda. And her breasts, often considered the most beautiful part of a woman, will be like the flowers of paradise that give rapture, intense delight.
She shall bear wisdom in her voiceless bosom. Strength shall be with her like a conqueror's
sword. We don't pronounce the W, we don't pronounce the W. Sword. Yeah, the W is silent.
And for her eyes the eternal's bliss shall bear.
Yes. So she shall bear wisdom. That's why another quality. Beauty and delight and love, he's mentioned. Wisdom. She'll be bearing that in her voiceless bosom. Again, this is the calm, the silence. In another letter, Sri Aurobindo has said two of the qualities of Savitri. They are silence and strength. He mentions these two things together in different places. So here they come, the silence, and yet that silence is strong. Strength shall be with her like the sword of a conqueror, a great warrior who wins victories. And from her eyes the eternal's bliss shall gaze. This Ananda, looking out, seeing everything, enjoying everything with bliss. Varadarajan.
The sea shall be sown in death's tremendous hour. The branch of heaven transplant to human soil. Nature shall overlay her mortal step. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging will.
So this is the second part of the prophecy. Not only will this one come, but the mother is telling something about what's going to happen in death's tremendous hour. We read this, we know that Satyavan is the one who's going to, the death of Satyavan is going to bring about or provide the occasion for the fulfillment of Savitri's mission. So Mother says in that hour, that significant hour when it seems as if death is triumphant, that's when a seed will be sown, will be planted for the future of humanity. And she says the coming of Savitri will represent like a gardener, he will take, or when we want to mango trees, I was thinking about hibiscuses. When we want to grow hibiscuses, we put a flower pot near to the base of the tree, and we take one of the lower branches and cover it with earth in the pot, and when it starts to grow, then we cut it off and we can take that little hibiscus in the pot and we can take it and transplant it somewhere. No? So something like that, a branch of heaven is going to get transplanted here in human soil. Savitri represents that. And at the beginning he says that's what she'd hoped, that this heavenly nature that she brings with us would get acclimatized on earth. No? So a branch of heaven, this coming of her. So actually, grammatically, we would expect this word to be transplanted. A seed shall be sown, a branch of heaven transplanted. No? Perhaps we can read it instead, a seed shall be sown, a branch of heaven shall transplant, active verb rather than passive, be transplanted to earth. So this will give the chance to nature to go beyond the human level. In the process of evolution, humanity is one step. There have been other steps before, but now this is the highest step. It's still the mortal step. It's the coming of Savitri is going to give to nature the chance to go beyond that limitation, that level, to a new level, which is not dominated by death. And she promises that fate, this fixed destiny, shall be changed by an unchanging will. This is also a very important aspect of the story. It's because Savitri has this unchanging will in the same way that Asvapati has. They keep a will, a purpose, and they stick to it through thick and thin and every obstruction, even when it seems as if the Supreme Lord himself or the Supreme Mother is saying no. They keep that unchanging will. So this is a very important aspect of the story. That unchanging will is what eventually has the power to change fate. So we have time to read this marvelous passage together. Let's take time over it. His prayer sank down in the resisting night, oppressed by the 1,000 forces that deny, as if too weak to climb to the Supreme. But there arose a wide consenting voice. The spirit of beauty was revealed in sound. Light floated round the marvelous vision's brow, and on her lips the immortal's joy took shape. O strong forerunner, I have heard thy cry. One shall descend and break the iron law, change nature's doom by the lone spirit's power. A limitless mind that can contain the world, a sweet and violent heart of ardent calms, moved by the passions of the gods, shall come. All mights and greatnesses shall join in her. Beauty shall walk celestial on the earth. Delight shall sleep in the cloud net of her hair, and in her body, as on his homing tree, immortal love shall beat his glorious wings. A music of griefless things shall weave her charm. The harps of the perfect shall attune her voice. The streams of heaven shall murmur in her laugh. Her lips shall be the honeycombs of God. Her limbs his golden jars of ecstasy. Her breasts the rapture flowers of paradise. She shall bear wisdom in her voiceless bosom. Strength shall be with her like a conqueror's sword, and from her eyes the Eternal's bliss shall gaze. A seed shall be sown in death's tremendous hour, a branch of heaven transplant to human soil. Nature shall overleap her mortal step. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging will.